Very good question.
Back here in the green shirt.
So if God knows all the possibilities, are there some possibilities that He wants more than others? And if so, is that what He's seeking? Is supposed to seek His will? Like, is there ever a wrong or a right choice? And what are you seeking? What He desires the most? Or
Sure. Okay, very good. Very good. I think God knows all possibilities because God knows all reality. And whatever happens was possible. It was always possible that right now at this time I would wave the watch like this. It was, and by definition, whatever happens was possible. So I think God does know those possibilities from all eternity. But that certainly does not mean that He likes all the possibilities. It just means that they were possible. God hates all possibilities that involve sin and harm and death and destruction and abuse and everything that violates His will. And so precisely because the future is partly composed of possibilities, if you accept this open view, it becomes imperative that we seek God's will. And not just seek it once upon a time, like we're coasting off of yesterday's will, but rather every day, Lord, how would you have me in this moment respond to these people? There's every moment new possibilities opened up for us, some of them good, some of them bad. And we always need to be, I think this view really goes well with the spirituality of, say, Brother Lawrence, and that whole tradition of practicing the presence of God, learning how to live in the now, learning how to stay awake and see loving possibilities and shunning hateful possibilities and following the will of God on a moment-by-moment basis. There's no set-in-stone blueprint out there that we can just sort of coast on in a pro forma way. This is a living relationship that we need to really cultivate and seek in our life.
so if it's not a matter of sin, is it really just sometimes up to you to choose?
Oh yeah, I as I said before, I could possibly choose this kind of gum or that kind of gum. I have no reason to think that God cares about that, or even what kind of pants you're going to wear, or those kind of things. He wants you to be a full human being that makes decisions on your own. I just think when there's morally significant or kingdom significant decisions, He's got an opinion, and if you're listening, He will. This is, I think, a huge thing because most Americans shut off any kind of listening to God on major issues that are morally significant, but we don't see them as such. For example, where are you going to live and what kind of house you're going to live in? That's a huge decision. Most Americans ask two questions. Do I want to live there and can I afford it? There's another question that kingdom people should ask, which should trump both of those, and that is, God, is this where you want me to live? We're soldiers who are in a war. There's a real thing going on here, and we're called to please our commanding officer. And so where you spend your money, how you spend your money, where you spend your time, how you spend your time, how you treat people, all of that is hugely important, and so we need to be listening. But the possibility won't even be open to us if we're just shut doing the American thing. This is one example of what I'm talking about. Good question. Yeah.
So you brought up the infinite intelligence point to mitigate this worry that some disastrous outcome could happen in the end or something.
Right.
But I just don't see how it's doing any work because suppose the girl in your example, so this disastrous outcome, right? And how is it helping to tell her that, look, at every step of the way, as every disaster is happening, God anticipated that disaster as if it was the one possible world history or something.
Sure.
So I mean, it seems like it's I mean, the question is, or the objection is, look, I mean, there's a possible continuation of the present that has this disastrous outcome out there. So unless God has, I mean, it seems like the response should be something like, well, I have a model of providential control, where God will step in and intervene in certain ways if things start going off track. So what's the anticipation point in doing that?
Okay, I'm not quite sure I understand your consternation over this, but I'll take a stab at it and let me know if I'm stabbing in the right direction. The force of it is this. I mean, what scares people? Some more than others, but it's the question: is my life or any particular event in my life ultimately meaningless? Okay, my kid got killed by a drunk driver. Is that just sheer, absolute, meaningless loss? Or is there a purpose to it? Now, in the classical view, to have a purpose for that event, you have to have a purpose going into it. And that is to say, it has to happen for that purpose. If I'm right about the infinite intelligence argument with the open view, things don't happen for a purpose, but everything can happen with a purpose. That is to say, given that it happened, as terrible and as ungodly, as demonic and as sheer negative and anti-God as it is, given that it happened, God can bring a purpose to it and bring redemptive value out of that. And so it doesn't have to be gratuitous evil. God can bring meaning to it. And I think that's a very important point for at least as much. Now, there can be a net loss, but that would be true of any view that you hold. Whatever comfort the classical view gives people, I think the open view can give it, but without the addendum complication that God had anything to do going into the event. I took a stab.
Well, I think one thing you should have said to him is,
Say it.
you do think that God sees some abstract possibilities that are just too awful, and he prunes them off. And I think he does.
Yeah, he says parameters. Oh, definitely.
So,
Yeah.
so that's,
Choose your own adventure story.
but that's not the,
It doesn't help her
Yeah.
because these are things he pruned. But
right, but it's not the, I mean, the idea is just that, look, I mean, I want to know, so the objection is, could Satan do this? Well, I forget what your example was. Satan was like,
Oh, hijack the universe or something, yeah.
And I said, could that turn out to be the actual world? And then you say, well, don't worry because, for everything that happens, God, all the possibilities were present to God's mind beforehand. And so he can anticipate each one and have a plan. But I just want to know, well, consistent with all those plans that he has in place for all these contingencies, is one of those possible futures one in which Satan does this. And so what's doing the real work is your point that, look, God's going to prune off some of these possibilities. He's going to place constraints on the range of possible futures.
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, it does, I think, that high-level metaphysical work on a superstructure kind of way. But I think it does work on a particular kind of way. And maybe I'm just not communicating it very, very well. But it addresses that fear that the world is completely chaos. Now, a lot of chaos can happen. But what people want to know is, ultimately, is God in control? And I have a way of saying, if they mean by that, can God, use this move? If you're playing God in chess, every move you make ultimately furthers the progress of him towards checkmate on you. And so God can utilize everything to push the universe towards his agenda and bring meaning out of it. Now, there's a lot of variables on that, like will you cooperate? I think Romans 8:28 is a classic on this, where Paul says, in all things, God is working together, or working with us, synergeo. Synergeo means synergy alongside of, cooperating with us to bring good out of it. And so God's working with us to say, okay, this is we can use this. I hate it. It's disgusting. In no sense did I cause it or even have a specific will for it to happen. That's all classic blueprint stuff. But given that it happened, it's not like I'm at a loss.